You open your 401k statement on a Tuesday night. The number looked fine, but something underneath it doesn't. You scroll a little slower. You do the quiet math. Years left, years gone. And for a second, the room feels smaller. You close the laptop. You tell yourself you'll look again tomorrow. You don't. There's a specific window in a man's financial life where the 401k stops being a savings account and starts being a verdict. It usually hits between 42 and 48, and almost nobody warns you it's coming. Before 42, the 401k feels like potential. You see compounding charts, you see decades. The math still looks generous, and you still believe in time. After 48, the math becomes brutal, but at least it's clear. You know what you have. You know what you need. The denial phase is over. But between 42 and 48, something stranger happens. You're old enough to see the gap, and still young enough to lie to yourself about closing it. That's the trap. I want to walk you through this carefully, because this is where most men lose a decade without realizing it. Not through a crash, not through a mistake, through a quiet kind of drift. Let's start with what your statement is actually telling you. The balance you see is not the story. The story is the velocity of the balance versus the velocity of your life. At 32, a six-figure balance feels like a milestone. At 45, the same number starts to feel like a warning. Same digits, completely different meaning. This is the first decoding. The 401k trap is not about how much you have. It is about how the number relates to your remaining working years. And in this window, that ratio quietly turns against you. Most men in this age range have somewhere between 1 and 3 times their annual income saved. Some have more. Many have less. The benchmark suggests you should be closer to 4 or 5 times by now. That gap is the source of the panic you can't quite name. It sits in your chest when you check your accounts late at night. It whispers when a colleague mentions retiring early. Here's the part nobody says out loud. The trap is not your balance. The trap is the story you've been telling yourself about catching up. Catching up is the most expensive fantasy in personal finance. It sounds responsible. It sounds disciplined. But for most men between 42 and 48, it quietly delays the harder decisions. You tell yourself the bonus will fix it. The promotion will fix it. The next role will fix it. And every year that passes, the math gets a little less forgiving. Compounding is generous on the way up and merciless on the way down. The dollars you didn't invest at 43 don't just cost you those dollars. They cost you the 20 years they would have grown. A single year of maxing out your 401k at 44 can mean roughly $100,000 less at 65. Not because the contribution is huge, because the time it would have had to grow is huge. This is the advanced nuance most people miss. In your 40s, your contribution rate matters more than your investment returns. You cannot out-allocate a savings gap. You cannot outpick funds a contribution problem. And yet most men in this window spend their energy on the wrong lever. They tweak their fund mix. They watch the market. They read about allocation. Meanwhile, their contribution rate hasn't moved in 4 years. The healthy version of this stage looks different. A healthy 45-year-old is not panicking. He is not chasing returns. He is quietly raising his contribution by 1 or 2% every year, almost invisibly. The trapped version looks busy. He checks his accounts constantly. He talks about the market. He moves money around, but the contribution line on his pay stub hasn't changed since he was 38. Activity is not progress. In your 40s, the only number that matters most weeks is the percentage you're sending in. Everything else is noise dressed up as control. There's another layer to this trap, and it's quieter. It has to do with lifestyle. Between 42 and 48, your income usually peaks faster than your savings rate. That gap becomes a lifestyle. Bigger house, newer car, nicer vacations, none of it feels reckless. Each step feels earned, and each step quietly raises the number you'll need to retire. This is the second decoding. The 401k trap is not just undersaving. It is over-anchoring your future self to a lifestyle your current self never paused to question. Every $1,000 a month you add to your standard of living adds roughly $300,000 to what you'll need at 65. That is the hidden tax of comfort. And here is where I want to pause for a moment. If you're somewhere in this 42 to 48 window right now, I want to ask you something honestly. When was the last time you opened your 401k and actually felt calm about it? Not proud, not anxious, just calm. Drop a comment and tell me where you are. Are you ahead of where you thought you'd be? Behind? Somewhere in the fog in between? Your answer might be the thing another man scrolling tonight needed to read. Someone out there is sitting with the same quiet panic and thinking he's the only one. These comments turn into a kind of mirror for everyone watching. They make the invisible parts of money visible. So if you have a minute, share where you really are. Now, let's get back into it, because the next part is where most men either turn this decade around or quietly lose it. The objection I hear most often sounds reasonable. Leo, I still have 20 years. There's plenty of time. And on paper, that's true. In practice, it isn't. You don't actually have 20 earning years left. You have maybe 15 high earning years, and the last 5 tend to be unpredictable. Health, layoffs, aging parents, burnout. The window where you have full income, full health, and full focus is shorter than your retirement calculator assumes. That's why this 6-year stretch carries so much weight. Think of 42 to 48 as the compounding hinge. Money you put in here has roughly 17 to 23 years to grow. After 48, that runway shortens fast, and every year removed cuts the future balance more than the last. A dollar invested at 45 can roughly triple by 65 under reasonable assumptions. A dollar invested at 55 might barely double. Same dollar, different decade, very different outcome. This is why the 42 to 48 window is the trap. It looks like the middle of the game. It is actually the last part of the early game, and once it's over, the strategy options narrow sharply. There's another quiet pattern in this window. It's the moment men start comparing balances with their peers. A friend mentions his number at dinner. A colleague hints at hers in a meeting. Suddenly, you're running the math in your head. Comparison is the accelerant on this fire. It pushes some men to oversave anxiously and others to give up entirely. Both reactions are the trap wearing different costumes. The healthy response is narrower and less dramatic. You stop comparing balances. You start comparing trajectories, not where someone is, but the direction they're moving and the rate. A man with $300,000 saved at 45 who is contributing 20% of his income is in a stronger position than a man with $600,000 who stopped contributing 2 years ago. Trajectory beats balance in this window. Most men never learn to read trajectory. They only read balance. That's why the statement feels emotional. It's a snapshot in a story that needs a slope. Here is a quieter version of the trap that almost nobody talks about, the 401k match. You probably have one. You probably think you're capturing it. Many men in this window aren't and don't know it. Front-loaded contributions, job changes, and uneven paychecks can leave thousands of match dollars on the table every year. Over this 6-year window, that can quietly cost you the price of a small car. Then there's the vesting trap. You leave a job at 44, feeling good about your number, and learn that a chunk of the employer match wasn't fully yours yet. That loss doesn't show up on any statement. And there's the rollover drift. Old 401ks from old jobs sitting in default funds, slowly underperforming. You forget they exist. They forget to grow. By 48, the drag is real. None of these are dramatic. None of them feel like a crisis. That's exactly why they belong to this window. The 42 to 48 trap is built from small leaks, not big breaks. Let's talk about what turning this around actually looks like, because it is not as dramatic as you fear. It rarely involves sacrifice that hurts daily life. It usually involves one honest afternoon. You sit down. You list every retirement account you've ever had. You log into each one. You write down the balance, the contribution rate, and the fund. That's the entire first step. Most men in this window have never done this in one sitting. They've seen the pieces. They've never seen the whole. The trap thrives in that fragmentation. The second step is even simpler. You raise your contribution rate by 1%, not 10, 1, small enough to feel painless, large enough to start bending the curve. Then you set a calendar reminder to raise it again in 6 months, and again 6 months after that. By 48, you've quietly moved your savings rate up by 6 points without ever feeling a shock. This is the boring magic of the window. You do not need a heroic move. You need a sequence of small, almost invisible decisions, repeated while you're still in the high-income years. The men who come out of this window well are not the ones who panic-saved. They are the ones who quietly raised the contribution line, ignored the comparisons, and stopped letting lifestyle creep set their retirement number. The men who lose this window are not lazy. They are usually working hard. They are just working on the wrong levers, while the right lever sits one click away inside their payroll portal. I want you to remember something as you sit with this. The fact that you're watching this video at all puts you in a different group. Most men in this window never pause to look. You just did. That awareness is not a small thing. It is the entire difference between drifting through this decade and steering through it. The trap only works on the unaware. If this video helped you see your 401k a little more clearly, do me a favor and hit the like button. It tells the algorithm to show this to other men in this window who need it. If you want more videos like this, ones that talk about money the way it actually feels, subscribe and turn the bell on so you don't miss the next one. And in the comments, tell me which part of this hit hardest. The trajectory idea, the lifestyle anchor, the catching up fantasy, or something else entirely. Your comment might be the sentence another man needs to read tonight. That's not a small contribution. That's the kind of quiet help this channel runs on. Thank you for being here and for doing the inner work on your money. Most people never look this directly at their own numbers. You did. In the next video, we're going to look at something even quieter. The exact net worth number where most men finally start to feel safe, and why that number is almost never what they thought it would be. Because once you understand the trap of this decade, the next question becomes simple. How much is actually enough? And the answer is going to surprise you.